For nearly a century, everybody thought they had this stunning painting by Vincent van Gogh figured out, but everybody was wrong. Look at this mesmerizing painting. A stormy sky consisting of thick dark blue brushstrokes, a golden wheat field and crows that are nothing more than black slashes against the blue. For over a century, this has been the image we return to when we think about Vincent van Gogh's tragic death, his final statement, his suicide note in paint. In the 1956 film Lust for Life, following a dramatic scene in a wheat field, Kirk Douglas leans against a tree, pulls out a gun, and shoots himself. That's how the movie ends. But here's what almost nobody knew at the time. This wasn't Van Gogh's final painting. And his letters from those final weeks? They don't read like the words of a man about to end his life. So what is this painting really about? And why have we been reading it wrong for so long? Let's start with what we think we know. Vincent van Gogh died on July 29, 1890, in the village of Auvers-sur-Oise, just north of Paris. He was 37 years old. 2 days earlier, he had walked out into the fields with a revolver. He shot himself in the stomach. Then somehow, he walked back to the inn where he was staying. His brother Theo rushed from Paris. The two brothers talked through the night, and then, around 1 in the morning on July 29th, Vincent died in Theo's arms. His last words, according to Theo, were "La tristesse durera toujours," which translates to "the sadness will last forever." It's one of the most famous deaths in art history, and Wheatfield with Crows has become inseparable from it. The painting seems to confirm everything we feel about his tragic demise. The threatening sky, the path that leads nowhere, and the crows, which we read as omens of death. Even Vincent's sister-in-law, Jo Bonger, seemed to confirm this interpretation. In her memoir, she wrote that the catastrophe approached like the ominous black birds that dart through the storm over the wheat fields. But Jo was writing decades after Vincent's death. Now let's look at the painting again, but this time, let's try to see it the way Vincent described it. Around July 10, 1890, Vincent wrote to Theo about 3 large canvases he had just completed. 2 of them, he said, showed immense stretches of wheat fields under turbulent skies. He admitted he had tried to express sadness and extreme loneliness. But then he added something crucial. This is something that is almost always left out of the story. He said these canvases also showed what I consider healthy and fortifying about the countryside. Sadness and fortification, loneliness and health. This definitely doesn't sound like a death wish, but something a lot more complicated. And what about those crows? We see them as symbols of death, but Vincent didn't. In 1880, 10 years before this painting, Vincent had written, "Please give me the freedom to be a bird." He compared himself to a caged bird, longing to migrate. But then the time comes when these birds fly away, he wrote. Deep within, they are rebelling against their misfortune. To Vincent, birds weren't dead, but freedom. Perhaps this explains why he moved so frequently during the final years of his life. Now let's look a bit closer. Are the crows flying toward us or away from us? Are they arriving or departing? These questions come with an observation I made about this work. In a painting where the path seems to go nowhere, the crows are the only things that can actually leave. Does this confirm the theory that this painting was an omen of what was to come? Before we can answer this, we need to know what Van Gogh was actually doing in those final weeks. He had arrived in Auvers-sur-Oise in late May 1890, after leaving the asylum at Saint-Rémy. He was once again hoping for a fresh start, and at first, it seemed to be working. In 70 days, he produced around 70 paintings. That's about 1 painting every single day. This doesn't feel like the output of a man who has given up. He painted the church at Auvers. He painted Dr. Gachet, the physician who was supposed to watch over him. He also painted thatched cottages in a style that resembled his period in Nuenen. And he painted wheat fields over and over, in different lights, different weathers. On July 6th, Vincent visited Theo and his wife Jo in Paris. Their baby, who was named Vincent after his uncle, was sick. Theo was having problems at work and money was tight. The visit didn't go well. Jo later wrote, "If only I'd been a bit kinder to him when he was with us." This is when the story of Vincent van Gogh's final days takes a remarkable turn. Upon his return from Paris, as always, he started painting, and on July 10th, he wrote a letter describing wheat fields with crows. He mentioned his sadness, yes, but he also said he hoped to bring his canvases to Paris as soon as possible. He was making plans. On July 23rd, just 4 days before he shot himself, Vincent wrote to Theo again, and this letter included something remarkable. He enclosed 2 orders for paint supplies, one for himself, one for another painter staying in Auvers. Think about that. 4 days before his death, Vincent van Gogh was ordering more paint. In the same letter, he included sketches of paintings he was working on. He wrote about his ambitions and he discussed the state of the art market. He said, "I'm applying myself to my canvases with all my attention and trying to do as well as certain painters whom I've liked and admired a great deal." Does this sound like a man who had already decided to die? Now here's the part that changes everything. Wheatfield with Crows was painted around July 10th. Vincent died on July 29th. That's almost 3 weeks. On the morning of July 27th, the very day he shot himself, he was painting something else. In 2020, researchers made a remarkable discovery. They found an old postcard from around 1905 that showed a hillside in Auvers covered with tree roots and tangled vegetation. When they compared it to one of Van Gogh's paintings, the match was almost perfect. The painting is called Tree Roots. It's an abstract tangle of forms and looks nothing like Wheatfield with Crows. And according to the researchers, Vincent painted it on the morning of July 27th, hours before he walked into the fields with a gun. The exact location? Just 150 meters from the inn where he was staying. The tree trunks from this painting are still there today. This changes the story completely. Wheatfield with Crows wasn't Van Gogh's last painting. It was painted more than 2 weeks before his death. And on the last day he could paint, Vincent was studying tree roots in the morning sun. Andries Bonger, Theo's brother-in-law, wrote in 1893 that the morning before his death he had painted a forest scene full of sun and life. So why did the myth of Van Gogh's final painting persist? It started early. Even by the beginning of the 20th century, people believed Wheatfield with Crows was Van Gogh's last work. Then, in 1934, Irving Stone published his novel Lust for Life. In the book, Vincent paints the crows and then immediately shoots himself. Then came the 1956 film. Kirk Douglas even practiced painting crows so he could portray the moment convincingly. The studio even shot the final scene first, in the actual fields where Van Gogh had worked. Douglas later recalled, "It was horrible to be standing in the field where he painted his last painting, leaning on the same tree with a gun in my hand." Except it wasn't where he painted his last painting. The movie won Oscars and Wheatfield with Crows became synonymous with artistic despair. I think it all comes down to the notion that the myth makes sense. It gives us a narrative, the tortured artist, the final statement of a troubled soul. But the truth is even stranger, and in my opinion, even sadder. Vincent van Gogh was still working on the morning he shot himself. He was still ordering paints and writing letters full of plans and ambitions. Whatever happened on July 27th, it wasn't the inevitable conclusion to a story of decline. It was a sudden and inexplicable moment, an extreme high followed by an incredible low. We'll probably never know the true circumstances of what happened in those fields. But we can know this: Wheatfield with Crows was not a suicide note. It's a painting about loneliness and sadness, yes, and perhaps even about paths that seem to lead nowhere. But in my opinion, it's more than that. Vincent said that these paintings showed what he found healthy and fortifying about the countryside. Maybe we should believe him. Look at the brushwork. Look at the way the wheat seems to move and the sheer intensity of that blue and yellow. This isn't the work of a man who was giving up. This is the work of a man who was still fighting to express something that words can't capture. "These canvases will tell you what I can't say in words," he wrote to Theo. They certainly do. And finally, there's something else worth considering. Van Gogh painted this on a double square canvas, which was an unusual format that he used exclusively in his final weeks. The elongated shape stretches the landscape. Because of this, you don't simply look at this painting, you enter it. And once you're inside, you realize the path doesn't lead to a dead end. It leads us deeper into the painting. The crows aren't coming for us, but they're flying toward the horizon, toward freedom. And the sky remains the sky. Sometimes it's stormy, other times it's clear. The Dutch artist painted until the very end, not Wheatfield with Crows, but tree roots in the summer light. Vincent van Gogh's Wheatfield with Crows hangs in the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. When you have a chance to see it, remember he wanted you to feel things when you look at his paintings. This includes sadness and loneliness, but also something healthy and fortifying. What does this painting make you feel? I would love to hear your opinion in the comments below. Thanks for watching until the end, and I'll see you in the next video.